Well, let's do a preview of the show for Saturday night. It is the 37th Survivor Series.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's getting this event's getting old.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 5 matches announced. I don't think we're going to get anything more at this point. Doesn't seem necessary to add anything more. And again, given the War Games matches, I don't have any concern about this show being low on time. Let's start with the Women's War Games match. Do you see this opening the show? Do you see the War Games book ending the show?
I do. I mean, I don't think that's that unusual compared to what they usually do, just to kind of give people a bit of a buffer between the two long hour plus matches sometimes. And yeah, I see this one starting off.
Yes, presented by Ruffles. And it is Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, and Shotzi against Damage Control's Io Sky, Bayley, Asuka, and Kairi Sane in Kairi's return to a WWE PLE for the first time in almost 3 years.
Okay, yeah, so not quite Carlito level, but nonetheless, I guess it's a long time. I am looking forward to the match, as I am usually like any War Games matches, but considering the division, I think has been pretty weak heading into this pay-per-view. I think they've done a really good job of making this War Games feel important by, bringing back Kairi Sane and then having Asuka join Io Sky as well, so that you, at least on the damage control side, have like a really, really strong, fresh unit of those three together, plus whatever tension they're trying to build with Bayley. So in terms of work rate, all 4 of them are going to be great on that side. And then on the other side, the addition of Becky Lynch, I think, is a big deal as well. You have, 2 of your 3 top women's baby faces on one side, and Shotzi being the sort of 4th person that they're trying to bring up to at least close to that level, I think is a very good tactic, and it's been decently successful in the build.
Yeah, I think they desperately need to get some more of these women up to that next level, and Shotzi's affiliation in this team, I think, should help. She should probably get one of those big spots in the match as well, you would think. 9 times out of 10, it's the psychology can be really tough when you don't have the heels have the advantage. And if we go with the expectation that the baby faces have the advantage in this one, I do think there's the natural workaround of the match starting with Becky, and number 2 is Charlotte. And here, these two, they have to work together against Damage Control, and it's going to be this constant divisiveness between them that somewhat offsets the numbers advantage that they have. And even once you add in Shotzi or Bianca, even though they'll have that number advantage, you still have these two that are going to be at odds. And you can either do the story where at the end, one takes the bullet for the other, they get on the same page, they help each other, they get the win. I do feel the babyfaces should probably win this match to set up something where hopefully coming out of this match, you have a few directions for Io Sky and probably continuing to tease like Bayley's long-term role with Damage Control. And if she is perceived, like if she is the one that ultimately is the one to give up at the end, or different stories that they're playing here. But for Becky, this is probably, unless they have a longer term story, probably just for the night she's part of this team and then goes back to Raw.
Could be, unless they have intentions of maybe building to Becky versus Charlotte at a future time. I see more so the heels, Damage Control, winning this one, just because I think you still want to establish that group, and they're the ones that are actually sticking around afterwards, right? So I can see Io, Asuka, Kairi, Bayley getting the victory, and then somehow in the whole mix, maybe Bayley becoming a bit of a sort of inconsequential to the finish, and again maybe having that tension continue. Then again, somebody pitting, or at least like causing Damage Control to lose with the sort of like end result of earning a title shot for Io Sky is a very big possibility as well. And who do we see next, challenging Io among this group?
I could really see them putting like Shotzi in this role as like the next challenger that you go to the Rumble with, or just someone to feud with in the interim before you get whatever the big SmackDown women's title program is going to be going into to Mania, whether that is, you revisit Bianca or have a different idea there. But I could certainly see Shotzi being heavily positioned in this match to stand out. And you probably want to have a big showcase for Kyrie as well. Which you could do with the elbow off the top, or plenty of ideas.
With those two sort of like being the newcomers into this upper mix, I would hope that they both come out of it with a lot gained in terms of like spectacular spot or something. So I'm looking forward to the match. I mean, these women's War Games matches, I think, almost always turn out pretty well.
Will there be an awkward infusion of Ruffles potato chips somehow injected into this match for maximum brand value?
I think you might get like the LED boards. As far as like the match itself, they'd have to be pretty creative to incorporate Ruffles into this.
Okay. Dragon Lee against Santos Escobar. I would not even be entertaining the idea of beating Santos right now. This guy should be running through this whole group until he gets to Rhea, but I think you do want to make Dragon Lee very competitive here. I don't think this should be some kind of blowout. Like, he's fighting on Rhea's behalf, and Santos can do whatever to get the win, whether it's injuring Dragon Lee or doing something. But this is his first big match in this heel role that I would want to get him off, like, just with a really like vicious style of win here to keep this going.
Yeah. I don't think there's any other result here, but Santos continuing to look strong in the first match he's having, as at least first match he's having since becoming a full heel. Dragon Lee can afford the loss. It doesn't really hurt him. He's sort of like, still playing underdog at the moment, and Santos is sort of considered at a really high level right now, beyond where Dragon Lee is, to the point where I think Lee can afford, especially if Santos cheats. But Dragon Lee gets over not necessarily just by winning, but by having really good matches, and he has. And this has all the potential of, being a great match on pay-per-view.
Rhea Ripley against Zoey Stark for the women's title. The story going into this is that Rhea Ripley is not paying attention to Zoey Stark, and she might overlook her in this match and slip on a banana peel, which I don't think is going to happen. And I don't see Zoey Stark winning this match. For her sake, hopefully it's an entertaining match and they have a great crowd. I think, much like we talked about Hikaru Shida going into LA last weekend against Toni Storm, I think Zoey Stark is in the position as the babyface going into Chicago, where I think Rhea Ripley is going to be a monster babyface to this crowd. And they may very well not be as receptive to Zoey Stark. And I see Ripley certainly winning emphatically.
Well, Ripley is definitely going to be, I guess, more well-liked than Zoey Stark. The danger is that these crowds may not react to the match at all, because I don't think anybody's buying into any sort of chance that the challenger has. There's no real story to speak of here. It's just basically sort of like a TV match. It's another notch for Rhea Ripley while we wait for her versus, I don't know, her ultimate destination being Becky or somebody else. They put very little into build. I keep forgetting that this match is even on the card. Zoey, I think, has sounded like pretty decent in the maybe increased amount of speaking that she's been given for these several weeks, but it hasn't nearly been enough to, I think, change my or anybody else's opinion about her. I don't think it's really elevated her status. The only way I see that happening is if they have a blow-away match that somehow gets people talking, and it's probably quite difficult to achieve that.
Gunther against The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship, that I thought the buildup has turned out really effective for this one. And I think that this is going to be the match where The Miz is going to bring the fight to Gunther. And in the end, he's going to be slaughtered. But he's going to, the idea that this guy takes his beating, but gains the respect of the audience by the end of this, and maybe you have like Gunther get like a closer call than expected with The Miz. But if there's a time to tear up a guy's chest with chops, this is the time for little Mike Mizanin.
Oh, totally. I, outside of the War Games matches, might be interested in this match the most of anything else on this show. And I never thought I would say that. I mean, even without the incredibly strong promos that we've heard from these two in the weeks leading up to this, I would have been curious just from like a kind of like almost like a weird curiosity to see what a Walter versus Miz match would look like. I mean, it's got that very strange, we've been kind of talking about this whole time, like that GCW spring break type of appeal of the most, one of the best wrestlers in the entire world versus the most WWE style wrestler in the entire world. And when you put that together, what's the end result going to be? So from that alone, I'm curious. I also think I'm curious to see like what they're going to give the Miz. They're kind of giving him almost like a renewed push as a guy who is doing a lot more fan-friendly offense that we're not expecting from him. And if there's if there's ever a chance to pull out a Canadian Destroyer or something from the Miz, it would be a night like tonight. So I expect some big, I don't know, fan-friendly spot, maybe a moonsault off the top rope, John, that'll really blow people's minds. But I'm kind of looking forward to this one in a big way.
If they had never signed Gunther, this match probably would have been happening at a spring break or something, except it would have been Walter against Matt Cardona.
Exactly.
Like that would have been the match that would be happening with the same dynamic.
Oh, Miz would have a hell of a run in GCW. I mean, if he ever wanted to.
I didn't see him being on the outside, but I'm interested to see the match, and I think they could do a really good job. And I do not expect the crowd to be checked out at all. I think this is like one of the more interesting matches. And then the men's War Games match. Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and Randy Orton in his first match since May of last year against Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, and Drew McIntyre, which this is a tremendous lineup. This should be this has the potential to be as good as like any War Games that WWE / NXT has done. I think that this one, you have some outstanding talent in this match. Crowd's going to be red hot. You've got the first visual of Randy Orton on a WWE program coming back as well. Very intriguing story that you have between Orton and Jey Uso, that you have with Orton and Cody, that you have with Drew McIntyre and Jey Uso and the others as well. Tons of different storyline elements to this one as well.
Totally. I'm kind of surprised that they haven't made more mention of, this being Cody's first War Games match and sort of drawing the connection between the match and his father. They mentioned it, but I thought it would be more of a principle sort of like motivation for him heading into this match. And it's not really something they've relied upon. It's been fun. They almost didn't need it. But I'm curious to see if during the match, we might get any sort of like meaningful Dusty tribute from him or his entire team. But just look
maybe
at
he'll bleed a gusher. That'll be his tribute to his father.
I don't know if he would be allowed these days, but anything's possible, in the cage. But just looking at the amount of talent here,
you don't see Drew McIntyre drinking Cody's blood from underneath.
I mean, it was already done 2 weeks ago. Perhaps if they didn't take it, then maybe we'll see it.
They cut an artery of Dom's.
Yeah. Do we see any sort of big surprises or story changes? I don't see a Money in the Bank cash-in attempt just with all the bodies involved here, nor does I think the show need it. What big surprises would you maybe predict for a match like this?
I think that it should hopefully give you I think coming out of this, I don't see like a wholesale turn or something like that, but I think coming out of this, I do like the idea of like Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre being at odds in a major way. That coming out of this, it's the idea, it's one or the other that is going to stay in the group. And I think that they have JD McDonough as the interesting piece here of, whether it's JD that ends up being the loser at the end and Drew McIntyre is ready to destroy him and finally Priest stands up for JD. You've set that up that he can be the tool that is the guy that Priest is going to protect against Drew, who now has a new vision of Judgment Day and also has the backing of Rhea Ripley, who is the unofficial leader of the group. For the babyface side, I think there's a lot of reasons that they should win. Number one, I don't think Randy's team should be losing the first one back. In fact, I think that should be the Rumble match is Roman and Randy Orton in Tropicana Field. That would be that was the plan that they were going towards last summer when he got hurt. And I think it makes all the sense in the world that he comes back. Jay can be the rift that he has coming back, which should be addressed, and that should ultimately lead him back to Roman in January. And you have plenty of time to get there with Randy.
And I suppose he's not officially signed to Raw or anything. You know, this is just him kind of coming in as an outsider joining Cody's team. So we don't exactly know which brand, nor does it ultimately matter.
Maybe he knocks on Nick Aldis's door, requests the match with Roman at the Royal Rumble, and Nick says, "Do you want the match? Do you want it?"
Yes. I think Randy comes in at a really interesting time where every possible combination of talents that he's going to be involved with that are in this match is a completely fresh feud for him. Obviously, you could do him versus any member of Judgment Day. You can do him versus Jey Uso, of course, which I expect them to continue to keep alive as they, flesh that story out. Obviously, Cody and Randy Orton is another big thread that you can expand upon. That to me feels Rumble worthy, if not even eventually Mania worthy. You can also have Randy go for Seth Rollins championship. I mean, yes, he can follow up with Roman, but I think Randy versus like a renewed Rollins feels entirely fresh. So you can really go any direction with him.
There's a lot that you could do. I mean, yeah, I think even the dynamic of like Sami Zayn in the middle of Randy and Jay trying to play peacemaker. There's I see a lot of interesting possibilities on the Raw side that should get. I think coming out of this match, you'll have many different directions to go in. But yeah, I see the babyface team winning here, and I think Randy should look very strong in this match, and he's probably going to be the most over guy on this entire show, like right alongside Cody, I would say.
And maybe right alongside CM Punk. Do you expect many chants or more to occur tomorrow?
I would have said no. I was actually surprised that there were some. It was like the videos I saw like before the show went on the air, they were hardly like deafening or anything. Like it sounded like a small group that was trying, and there were some people like booing them down as well. So I don't see that even being like a protest chant or even the idea. I can't say that like the audience going is completely dismissing their idea of a CM Punk.
It's still very much, I feel, a topic of conversation. As little as I think it's happening at all, I think audiences are still trying to hold on to the belief that there's a chance that CM Punk might show up in Chicago.
Well, let me say this and granted, they haven't done it lately, but if they do get CM Punk chance tomorrow and you see performers that are either have like a boo-boo face or getting annoyed online after at fans chanting and there's no CM Punk, WWE has no reason why you teased those GTSs for a few weeks' time. Like you threw that out there, and that's all you need to throw to a fan in that arena tomorrow night that is hoping to see CM Punk, that they will cling to that as a reason to a tease to be warranted or such. So why they did that, I have no idea. But.
Or like some of the references on commentary that might be misconstrued as like references to Punk as well. We don't know if it's the talent just kind of like throwing those in themselves. And in that case, you, I guess, have to ask why as well. But we should also note they haven't really done anything like that in the past several weeks. Nakamura has stopped doing the GTSs, and I don't think it's happening, but you continue to ask why they did occur at the time, or maybe if even the talents felt like it would have had the type of effect that I don't know would have led up to Survivor Series as well. So anyway, listen, anything is possible, but I think the chances are low.
All right. We're going to open up the calls. If you want to chime in with any of your thoughts on any of the news this week, Survivor Series, whatever topics you would like to discuss, they are all open for you to enter.
Hey, let's start things off with Hansi. Welcome, Hansi.